Let's go. Welcome in to the Michigan pregame show. It is Michigan versus Wisconsin, and we have the one, the only, the Haley Scott joining us today. Oh, let's go, Haley. How are you feeling on this phenomenal Saturday here in Michigan that feels like a summer day?
Right? Phenomenal Saturday indeed. I feel absolutely amazing. The weather is so good for being October in Michigan.
Yeah.
And we have some very important things to cover.
Oh, so important. This is the biggest day I remember in a long time in terms of sports in the fall, because we have a Michigan team that's thriving. We have a Michigan State team with a must-win game.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Tiger team that are in the playoffs in the ALDS. And we have a Lions team that are trying to prove themselves to be the best team in football. Did I hit all of that right?
I think you hit all of it, yes. So this is a very important day. We're going to cover it all. But, of course, this is the Michigan versus Wisconsin pregame show.
Let's go.
So, of course, we are going to heavily talk about that. But before we do that, let's talk briefly about the Lions versus Bengals coming up.
Another Detroit, Ohio matchup that I cannot wait for Detroit to get the better of another Ohio team, like we have seen with baseball, like we've seen us beating the Browns. And I can't wait to talk about Michigan, but we do have to hit on this first before that, because it's such a big Michigan game. We will dive into the itty-gritty, everything about it, but got to talk a little bit of Lions here.
Yeah, and just to kind of relate the Lions versus Bengals to this Michigan-Wisconsin game, similarly, I really don't see the Bengals making a big push on the Lions for how good the Lions have been playing, especially with some key things that might be arising. Spoiler alert, Aleem McNeil, possibly. But yeah, like looking at this Bengals, the offensive line is honestly kind of sinking them. They can't really run the ball, and they've been looking pretty ugly in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And then when you look at the Lions, I mean, they've been looking better and better each game. You have Hutch and Muhammad looking like a great edge rush duo, and then the possibility of them bringing back Aleem McNeil, literally the best interior pass rusher. I mean, it's looking like a dangerous pass rush duo for the Lions.
I agree.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and the reason I wanted to hit on this Lions-Bengals is because I feel so good about this game on Sunday, but it almost relates exactly to how I feel about this Michigan Wolverines versus Wisconsin team. They don't have an identity at quarterback whatsoever in terms of the Wisconsin Badgers, and I feel the same exact way. I think Jake Browning should probably be in the CFL or whatever they're calling it nowadays, because I don't believe he's a professional quarterback. And Wisconsin is struggling with the same exact things. They don't have a quarterback. They are struggling with an identity. Obviously, Joe Burrow, you can see how much he just meant to that Bengals team. I think we're going to see a blowout, not just on Sunday, but I think we're going to see one today for similar reasons, and that starts with the opposing team's quarterback situation.
Speaking of the absence of the quarterback and how important that is, are you happy that Joe Burrow isn't playing, or would you have wanted to see how he plays against Lions hardcore defense?
So I love this question because it is Joe Burrow, the man, the myth, the legend, the moxie that comes with Joe Burrow. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed when you see the schedule opening up at the beginning of the season. You think, okay, we got to go to Cincinnati to face Joe Burrow in that high-power offensive passing attack. But without Joe Burrow there, this is going to be an absolute blowout. Once again, we saw Detroit blow out Cleveland. This is going to be an annihilation in Cincinnati. I guess it's good for the third stringers to get a little bit of run in Cincy. But in terms of, appointment television viewing, this game just doesn't do it for me in Cincy.
Exactly.
I'm a little disappointed that Joe Burrow isn't there. I would have liked to see our young cornerback, Terrion Arnold, go up against Joe Burrow in Cincy.
Right, because if Joe Burrow was playing in this game, then it really would have been way more entertaining. Not saying that the Lions wouldn't still win, but
Yeah.
it would still be great to watch. And we already know that when you're on your third string quarterback, you just don't have a quarterback. So unfortunately for the Bengals, like you said, it's going to be a big blowout. But who do you think shows up big for the Lions against Cincinnati?
So for the Lions, I know these stories have been coming out, and David Montgomery is from Cincinnati, and his sister got paralyzed in a car accident from the head down, from the neck down, so she's never been able to see David play. She lives in Cincinnati, and she will be in attendance for David Montgomery in Cincinnati. The Lions running back is going to have a massive day against the Bengals. I think the story behind it makes it even more special. I think you're talking 2 touchdowns, at least 70 yards on the ground. He's going to have a big day in Cincinnati, and especially with the tear-jerker, heart-jerker behind it. That's going to be something special to watch. Watch out for David Montgomery to have a big day in Cincinnati. And the same way that the Lions kind of use a Sonic and Knuckles punch is kind of the same way you're starting to see a little bit of the Michigan use Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. I can't wait until we dive into that in just a little bit here.
Yeah, so how about we talk about our next Detroit team?
Whoa, did somebody say playoffs?
So we have the Tigers going up against the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, hey.
I am not too knowledgeable on baseball, so I would love for you to take the reins on this one, but what's it looking like so far? Like, did the Detroit Tigers make the right decision in starting that rookie Troy Melton in game 1?
Troy Melton, he got in a big spot, and I'm honestly so excited that the Detroit Tigers moved on, and I will say this over and over again, and took care of the Cleveland Guardians, sent them home packing as they should. Yes, I do think this is going to be a tough spot for the rookie, but I think he may have learned from his 8th inning blunder against Cleveland in Game 2, where he gave up some big-time runs to the Guardians. I think he has learned from it, hopefully. I am more of an optimist in terms of trusting the decisions that they make sometimes. I mean, didn't love Wenzel Perez. I'm not going to get off into a tangent here. He came through. Troy Melton, the rookie, starting game 1 of the ALDS on the road. What does this say to me? This says to me that they trust this guy's stuff, first of all, and they trust the person, second of all. They trust that it's not going to be too big of a moment for Troy Melton to get his start, his first playoff start in Seattle, who has the best lineup in the American League from top to bottom. And yeah, it's going to be a special thing to watch tonight. Going downtown Royal Oak, my buddy's bar is sadly closing with the shout out to Sidebar Royal Oak. Sadly closing with rent just like getting crazy skyrocketed. So sad to hear, but we're doing a little away party. It's going to be fun. Have all my friends there celebrating a little bit of a birthday that went down this week. So we're going to be getting a little crazy watching this one. So yeah, going to be fun.
So what about Javier Baez? What do you think of his performance so far? And do you think that he's cleaned the slate of the terrible contract this year, marking that all-star game and being the best position player throughout the wild card games?
I do think Javier Baez has cleaned all slates, and we're about to dive into Michigan football hardcore. But before we do, everybody loves a good comeback story. One guy coming back is Sharon Moore. But before that, Javier Baez coming back this year, I believe he has cleared the slate for the Detroit Tigers, and I can't wait to watch him tonight. Playoff Javi is in full effect, and I believe this team is leaning on him in that defense and that big bat, and I think you're going to see it tonight, the shortstop shine, and he has cleared everything with me of the past for what he's done this season for this Detroit Tigers team. I'm excited, Haley. I am thrilled to be talking playoff baseball, talking Lions, best team in football, and talking one of the best teams in the Big Ten, top 20 in the country. Do we believe the Michigan Wolverines are going to take it to the Badgers today?
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
So we have Michigan versus Wisconsin, Badgers. Wisconsin is going on the road to Michigan, starting in just 1 hour-ish, not even.
Yup.
Michigan, the last I checked, was a 16.5-point favorite. That could have changed. But just looking at Michigan overall, Sharon Moore is back, and it's been a while. He did not coach those last 2 games, and they had a bye week. And sometimes a bye week can be difficult for coaches to manage, but it's also instrumental for the team as a whole. Watching films, taking a break, and really just regrouping, preparing for the game that is going to come. So I do expect this to be a clean and smooth transition with Sharon Moore. That's not to say that I don't think Biff Poggi did a great job being the interim head coach, but how do you feel about Sharon Moore being back, and do you expect to see any specific changes in his coaching style?
I'm going to be straight up. This team looked way better,
right,
without Sharon Moore under the helm. I mean, it is crazy to say a team looks better without the head coach being there, but that's exactly what happened when Biff Poggi took over, because they finally opened up the offense. So I want to see a head coach that isn't stubborn, that is okay with change and okay with growth. And I want to see a head coach that allows his quarterback to take a couple hits here and there, get him involved in the game and involved in the game early so he can build that confidence. Maybe drop a shoulder on a cornerback. Not saying go up against a 350-pound tackle, but if you're on the outside, I would like to see him lower the shoulder a little bit, assert his dominance against the Wisconsin Badgers. Sharon Moore didn't allow Bryce Underwood to do that early on in the season, and I believe he learned from what Chip Lindsey and Biff Poggi were able to allow Bryce Underwood to do. So I think Sharon Moore, if it looks like the first 2 weeks, you're legitimately talking potential hot seat stuff.
Right. Because
he cannot resort back to the old scared money don't make money, and he cannot play scared when he has a Ferrari driving this program. Sharon's not the Ferrari. Bryce Underwood is. Get behind the wheel, drive that thing.
Exactly. And we saw how big of a difference positively it was to let Bryce Underwood run, let him take a couple hits, just change the coaching style for Bryce Underwood and that offensive line as a whole. So I do think that this game is a good game for Sharon Moore to come back to, so we can, Wisconsin is not going to be big competition, and we can really see if Sharon Moore is going to let Bryce Underwood take the reins and see if this bye week was used to the advantage that they could have used it as. Similarly, Wisconsin also had a bye week, but looking at Wisconsin, you can't help but feel a little bit hopeless. I mean, they also have one of the toughest Big Ten schedules, so it's just not looking too bright for them.
Have you looked ahead to a couple weeks here, Haley? They're hosting OSU, and then they're at Oregon.
Oh, God.
I think they might lose by a combined 200 points in those games.
And at that point, you just feel bad. You know what I mean? Like,
For
you
real.
simply just feel bad. There's too many factors that play into Wisconsin's downfall that we will get into.
Yeah.
But my first question that comes with that is just simply, does Wisconsin have an identity?
I mean, no, they really don't. This team is struggling. This program is struggling right now. And it's honestly a little sad to see, because Wisconsin is, known as one of the Big Ten smash mouth, run the ball for 250, Monty Ball, Jonathan Taylor. You think about those backs that have come through Wisconsin, and I just don't know what the hell Luke Fickell is doing with this program right now. I just believe when he came over from Cincinnati, I mean, he tried to reshape their whole entire identity, and is completely falling on his face here. I think if you think about Wisconsin football in 2025, they're a clown car. They have no identity true to themselves, but I think more importantly, they're trying to stop the run as the number one rushing defense technically right now, but I think it's all smoke and mirrors. all day. I think Michigan's going to be able to push them around. The only 2 wins they've had is against Miami of Ohio and Middle Tennessee. Yeah, I'm not scared of this Wisconsin team at all, and a team without an identity is not a tough team to beat.
Right. Luke Fickles definitely did not understand, in my opinion, what he was going into. He didn't understand what Wisconsin was and what Wisconsin was going to be with all of these changes that he wanted to make, especially with the fact that the quarterback situation is just a monstrosity. And it's so unfortunate because these are because of injuries, Billy Edwards was definitely their go-to guy, but he got injured very early on, and his status is still up in the air. And then you have Danny O'Neal. He's been the backup, but he has not looked good, and now he's injured as well. So they might be on Hunter Simmons, the third string. I honestly don't even know at this point. But like I said, with the Bengals, if you're on your third string quarterback, then you simply don't have a quarterback, and that is the number one reason why your team is just not going to succeed.
Oh, for sure. They're going to be, looking like Michigan last year with, I forget his name's escaped, Davis Warren, and I don't want to slander him too much because you go into Ohio and win, but Davis Warren, I mean, everybody in the chat room right now knows. Like, okay, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't really have a shot to beat anybody with a pulse. And Wisconsin's ground game is not good enough where you can hand the ball off 35 times and expect to win a game. This Wisconsin team, and we did talk about it, like the quarterback situation, they don't even have a line for their quarterback in Vegas right now in terms of his passing yards, because I don't know if they know who exactly it's going to be right now and what to expect. I mean, what would you set the line at? 60 yards for a quarterback? I think the Michigan Wolverines are going to dominate this game today, the same way I think the Lions are going to dominate the Bengals. And we talked about it. It comes down to the quarterback. You have one side with an elite in terms of, his physical ability right now. He's still learning how to process the game, but his traits are 100% there. 5-star, sky-high potential to be the best quarterback in college football. And you have a guy in a third-string quarterback who doesn't have a line for his passing props going into the big house after a bye week into a Wink Martindale defense. This smells like trouble, and I'm actually stunned. I'm looking at the live odds here. I'm absolutely stunned that this spread is only 17.5. That is the live odds here, and that might be the best bet of the day. We'll see. I will give you guys one in a little bit. Just wait on that. But, yeah, I mean, am I just being a slappy here, or does this smell all Michigan early? Am I being a slappy? No?
No, you're not being a slappy. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It is actually surprising to me that it's only 17.5. I think that it's going to be like a much bigger separation.
For sure. I mean, we'll get to some predictions later for sure, but yeah, 17.5 seems way too small for me. I mean, this could be a spot. If it looks fishy, it could be. And Vegas it's not in, the game of losing money, but this is crazy. We got a couple people in the super chat here. We're getting some predictions. 40-19 Michigan, says Greg. Craig says all you have to do is hand the ball to Haynes and chill if you're U of M. If our wide receivers actually caught football, right, Bryce would have pretty solid passing. Shout out everybody in the Woodward Sports Chat. Make sure you guys smash the like button. Share it to your Michigan buddies. Share it to your mom. Share it to your uncle. Share it to your grandma. It doesn't matter to us. Share it all around. But make sure you smash that like button. We appreciate you being here on a Saturday. Let's go. It's exciting.
So there was some news about Sharon Moore saying that the competition is ongoing at the wide receiver position, and they're going to see who practices the best this past week and who the best guys will start. Who are you expecting to really thrive in this game on the receiver end?
So on the receiving end, it starts with, you have to still talk about him for sure. His name's Donovan McCulley. He's the transfer from Indiana. He has struggled at times solidifying himself as the true number one. Mm-hmm. He truly hasn't solidified himself. In terms of traits, he should be the number one. But in terms of separation and hands, he just hasn't separated himself enough in terms of being that true alpha dog in the wide receiver room that they brought him here to be. They allowed him to wear the number one. Shout out Braylon Edwards. Like, you don't get that number one unless you are expected to do great things as a Michigan wide receiver. And right now, he's not living up to the standard at all. But I expect Donovan McCulley to have a big game in this one to try to prove himself to be that top dog. But he also has some dogs nipping at his heels here, Haley. Who are you excited for?
I'm looking at Andrew Marsh in this game.
Yeah.
He definitely had a chance to catch his breath in this bye week. So I want to see him transcend from just being a freshman playmaker to above that. Like, his ceiling is so high. He has so much potential. We haven't seen enough of him yet. But, I mean, he's a great rusher. He's physically dominant. He has the speed. He is a top 100 recruit. So make use of that player and let's see what he can bring, because he's shown good flashes. And I think that he could be a great duo with Bryce Underwood. Like I previously said, I don't think that Bryce Underwood has receivers that he can trust just yet. But I think Andrew Marsh, when given more playing time, can be that guy.
I'm right there with you. I think that's a perfect guy to highlight. And I've heard nothing but good things coming out of the bye week and Andrew Marsh. When you talk about a guy that is gifted, highly skilled, that's where it starts with Andrew Marsh. And we hit on it just a little bit a couple weeks ago when we were breaking down the Nebraska game. It's who's going to step up on the outside. It is the biggest question mark right now for the Michigan offense. It's if you do find that alpha dog top receiver, other players will fall into line. Like if Andrew Marsh becomes the number two then maybe in his freshman season, if McCulley finally does take that step up with his 6'5 frame. I mean, he has 197 yards through 4 games for McCulley, but if Andrew Marsh can solidify himself as a reliable number two, that goes such a long way for Bryce Underwood and his confidence in his wide receivers. And I believe if they can solidify the number one and number two wide receivers, you're not just talking about a possible Big Ten. You're talking about a deep run in the postseason, in the playoffs, where we're talking about multiple wins. Because I know we'll hit on it in a little, the way this defense is playing and the way they're able to create some pressure, which we'll talk about, if this offense can find a consistent passing game, and a consistent passing game, not just to some tight ends we'll also hit on, this team's ceiling goes through the moon, Haley, where you're legitimately talking about a national title contender.
Right. The Michigan offense, their identity is definitely in the offensive line and the run game for sure. And that weak point is in that passing game. It is the most inconsistent that we've seen, but that should be the biggest thing that they should focus on. The offensive line kicked ass up front with that front 5 against Nebraska. Love to see that. And you're seeing typical Michigan. They maul you up front with their offensive linemen. They got really good running backs. So hopefully this bye week gives Chip Lindsey time to just revisit with everyone, revisit with Bryce, and see where they want to go from this point. Looking back at Bryce Underwood, what do you expect to see from him in this game?
I think the way that you're going to see Wisconsin's defense attack this Michigan Wolverines offense is how you're going to see every other team attack this Michigan offense, and it's stacking the box, not allowing Justice Haynes to run for over 100 yards because he can do it so easily, just breaking one run, which he's done seemingly every single game, breaking that big run. I think you're going to see Bryce Underwood having a stacked box. You're going to have to see that play action, and I'm going to run Bryce Underwood on some quarterback excuse me. I would like to see him get out of the pocket, on the move a little bit, see Bryce Underwood get to some of those wide receivers in the second level. That's what I want to see out of Bryce today. And if Wisconsin chooses to bring pressure, I want to see him pick it up. Want to see him take that next step, hopefully point out some pass protections, and his line helps him out a little bit to give him enough time to stand in there and deliver a strike if he sees his wide receiver get a step. The ability to trust his wide receivers today is going to go a long way for me in terms of Bryce Underwood, and what I want to see out of his progression. Can Bryce Underwood take the next step in terms of a pocket passer? And when he does get outside, can he throw the ball on the run and complete those passes that we've seen some of these wide receivers drop at times?
The ceiling for Bryce Underwood is simply so high, and you love to see it. It seems like he's truly progressed week after week, and then you have this bye week that truly allows him to get comfortable and to look at the films, to really take a step back and get extra ample time to prepare, yes, for this Wisconsin game, but all the other games moving forward as well. He had a really good experience at Nebraska. He had 55 yards on the ground, and he's truly molding into the star player that everyone has said that he would be, which we love to see. And I also love to see the duo between him and Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes had 149 yards on the ground in that Nebraska game. Absolutely insane. So literally, like whoever commented said, all he's got to do is give him the ball and let him run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is that simple sometimes. It seems like when you have one of the best running backs in the country, hands down, and one of the most athletic quarterbacks, sorry for the language here, frick it, the most athletic quarterback, and it's not close, sue me, just kidding. Bryce Underwood is the most athletic quarterback in the nation. I mean, you're watching a pregame show. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When you have that kind of athlete at quarterback and you have to account for the run of Bryce Underwood, you have seen what it has opened up for Justice Haynes in the running game. And that linebacker having to account for Bryce Underwood to keep that football compared to give it up just for a split second is the difference in Justice Haynes having a 7-yarder and a 70-yarder, and you are seeing it day in and day out with this Michigan Wolverines offense. So I'm ecstatic about this duo that we have in the backfield for the Michigan Wolverines. It feels like forever ago. I don't even remember in my lifetime having a duo like this.
Oh, no.
And I don't even recall like many duos like this. I mean, I would think back, maybe some like of those great Ohio State teams possibly of the past, but I don't want to give them any shine here, so that is enough OSU of the day. But yes, this dynamic duo is incredible, and I just want to thank Alabama and LSU, the SEC. Thank you for Bryce Underwood at LSU, and thank you for Justice Haynes from Alabama. We appreciate you guys. Way to not keep two amazingly talented players in your program. This is special because these guys, you've seen it day in and day out, but when you go up against, the elite talent at the end of the season and into the playoffs, these two guys will still shine, and that's what means the most to me. So I'm excited to see it against a Wisconsin team that has the best rushing total, which hasn't really been challenged much. I'm excited to see these two today specifically attack it. But two guys you're going to have to watch out for are the Wisconsin linebackers. They get after you. So if we can make those linebackers wait just a half second because of that presence of that quarterback run, I think Justice Haynes is going to be in for another really big day.
Yeah, so I would say that really the only positive thing looking at Wisconsin is the fact that they've been able to stop the run well based off of the teams that they've played, which haven't seemed like such big competition. So like you said, they're first in the nation in rushing defense.
Yep.
I don't know how much validity that holds, but truly nothing else has gone according to plan with them. Their pass defense sucks, and
get them, Haley.
It's just, but to find a solution when your team is that bad is rely on what you do have.
Yep.
Play your strengths with your strengths in those slivers of your rushing defense. And you love to see Michigan just run the ball, run all over their competition. So with that comes the question of, is Michigan just going to run for hundreds of yards, or is Wisconsin going to be able to make some good stops in this game?
So to be honest, the number 1 rushing defense in the country is going to be in for a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Going to be in for a little bit of trouble today, and I believe it's because Justice Haynes and Bryce Underwood. If Bryce Underwood doesn't have 50 yards at least against everybody we play for the rest of the season, Sharon Moore's in some trouble.
Yeah.
Chip Lindsey, yeah, just listen to Chip, honestly. Listen to Chip. I like the way Pogge did, and I believe if you let Bryce Underwood go out there, be a playmaker, it opens things up for everybody. Like I just alluded to about Justice Haynes breaking these out for big time runs. I think you're going to see the same thing today. This Wisconsin team just lost at home to Maryland. Going on the road to a big house that hasn't hosted in 3 weeks, these Michigan fans are going to be loud. They're going to be rowdy. And this Michigan team, there's nothing like just completely demoralizing another team. Just first down after first down after first down on the ground. I expect to see that a lot today from Bryce Underwood and Justice Haynes. I don't think they're going to be able to stop this Michigan rushing attack. And we can't talk about the rushing attack. We'll get to that in a sec. But do you think they're going to be able to stop them at all? Do you think they're going to load like 8 people in the box, just make you throw it on them? Do you think they'll be able to stop them, Haley?
No.
No.
Honestly, no. Short answer, no. But you had mentioned that Maryland game.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So let's talk about the Wisconsin offense because it's just simply so disappointing.
Yep.
They had 2 kicks blocked in the first quarter in the Maryland game, and there's no reason to have 2 blocked kicks. That's crazy. That's one thing that they can definitely fix, of course, is the kicking,
Yeah.
And then, like I said, just use your strengths, but it seems like there's no strengths in the offense.
Yeah,
there hasn't been progress with Wisconsin in general. Like we were saying, they really don't know who they are. They don't have that identity, and they simply don't have what it takes to deal with this Michigan defense as strong as they are. So I really don't expect to see any type of offensive output in Wisconsin, unfortunately. And they just don't score a lot of points, and I don't think that they will score a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you're going to see a whole lot of the way that they assemble their offense and run their offense. You're going to see a lot of flashbacks to Central Michigan when they're going up against a team that is way better physically, in every single aspect, and, just better athletes across the board. Central Michigan had to do a lot of trick plays, try to throw you off track this way. I think you're going to see Wisconsin trying to get out on the edge on some end arounds, some maybe fake reverses at times, because just one-on-one, they're not going to be able to handle the type of athletes and the type of pressure that this Michigan defense is going to be putting on them. So I'm expecting a lot of crazy plays, trick plays, and honestly, I think it's going to end up going a lot of Michigan's way, because I think it's going to lead to a lot of turnovers. And the reason it's going to lead to turnovers is because this defensive line and this linebacking crew is going to sniff it out in a heartbeat. This is a very smart group. They have very smart linebackers between Hausman and now Barnum, who might be the best defender in the country when they've moved him to the D-line. So I believe between those two guys, Wisconsin is in.
I keep mixing up
they have
Nebraska
same colors,
Wisconsin.
Nebraska, Wisconsin. I believe Wisconsin's going to be in for a very long day on offense, specifically because of those two guys. You talk about Hausman and you talk about Barnum. Those are 2 elite athletic guys for the Michigan defense that are very smart, and they're going to get to them.
And just in general, the Michigan defense is overall looking very, very elite. I would definitely say that they're a little bit ahead of the offense.
First time on the mic here.
Hot mic. I would definitely say that defense is a little bit ahead of the offense, which seems kind of, how would you say it? Like typical in a football team?
Yeah, for sure.
But you're seeing a lot of good things, especially in Barnum. Those guys at the edge, Derek Moore has been playing very, very well, especially in that game against Nebraska. He had 2 tackles and truly just dominated Nebraska's offensive tackles. And then you have the linebacker play, and then the corners are just continuing to grow. You love to see it. So I do expect to see just an upward trend with them. And then hopefully with Michigan's offense as well, I think that they still have a lot of learning to do. But when there's still things to learn, then the space and time that you have to grow is huge, especially still just being the somewhat beginning of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I think this defense is going to continue to be ahead in a sense just because of the amount of talent that they have up front. When we talked about that Nebraska game and people we wanted to see step up, all of them stepped up. Every single person on this defensive line that we talked about, Haley, we talked about Derek Moore and how he was a big-time defensive end recruit. And this is the time now to be finally showing it to take that next step forward. And he did it. He had 1.5 sacks against Nebraska. So big time to see for the former top recruit in Derek Moore. We talked about the interior of this defensive line and were they going to be able to get push on an elite quarterback in Dylan Raiola? Guess what? Rayshawn Benny, former Michigan, from the state of Michigan, former Detroit kid, if I'm not mistaken, possibly Oak Park. Rayshawn Benny came out to play 1.5 sacks from the defensive tackle position, which is always key to be getting pressure from the interior. And then you talk about the man, the myth, the legend. And maybe this guy has opened things up for Derek Moore because of the amount of pressure he's been able to attract. It's Jayshon Barnum. And I believe he is legitimately one of the top defenders in football. You are talking about a future top 10 pick in the NFL draft. I think his move to end and to edge, wherever they're moving him, it draws so much pressure and so much attention of the other team, where now I think Derek Moore's maybe getting a few more one-on-ones on the outside. So I think it's opening things up. And I think Barnum is an absolute missile coming at you, freight train ready to knock you out. So Wisconsin better be careful. Like I talked about on some of those end arounds, if they leave Barnum unblocked, the wide receiver, whoever is on this end around, might be on the bench the end of the day, because Barnum is going to explode against some of these Wisconsin Badgers players. So I would watch out for Jayshon Barnum, and that's who I would be circling if I was the other team's offensive coordinator ad nauseum.
Right. And like you said, it gives Derek Moore the opportunity to have more one-on-ones, which I think is a good thing because he's so physically dominant. He can take those one-on-ones because he's just a freaking freight train, honestly. Like, he can get those sacks, and it's great to see. So I think that, honestly, the best strategy for Wisconsin, because you had brought up the Central game, which I think is a good point, because you think about these obvious underdogs, and they need to strategize on what they need to do to face these tougher competitions. So then I think back on the first game against Michigan with New Mexico. I think that Wisconsin's best strategy is kind of doing what they did as underdogs. New Mexico had these massive long drives and had great time of possession. Yeah. So if Wisconsin can even finagle something, then that could be a strategy that they could try and take as the underdog.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's for sure the strategy. That's like what I talk about, like, oh gosh, like, when the Lions play like the Chiefs a couple years ago, like at Arrowhead to open the year, it's like run the ball, don't let Patrick Mahomes get it. That's kind of how I feel. But now we're Patrick Mahomes,
right?
Which is awesome to talk about because we have such an electric offense, because we have such an elite defense. I do think that is the best strategy for Wisconsin, kind of maneuver, pick up the first downs. I wouldn't be surprised if they go for it on fourth downs more often than not, just because that you are outmatched in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a fake punt. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw anything from the Wisconsin Badgers to try to gain any momentum in this game. But shout out everybody in the chat talking Michigan ball. Smash that like button. It does us wonders. Share it to your friends. We got a couple in here. I like Macaulay from Mark. Duncan, Simple Guy Science. Defense is fun. That one's pretty funny. I saw Haley is Bryce Underwood's, or Haley is Woodward Sports is Bryce Underwood. Haley,
What?
hell of a
That's
comp
nice.
there. Very
Thanks.
nice. Yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat. Smash that like button. I just don't think Wisconsin's going to be able to go on these long drives. I just think it's going to be all Michigan early and often today.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to see is how Bryce Underwood looks after the bye week in terms of how has he, does he look more comfortable, in the offense, taking a 3-step drop and firing it off? Is he on the same page with some of these tight ends, going forward? And that's what I want to see. We talked about the wide receivers and we've talked about the tight ends just a little bit, but I want to see Bryce Underwood and his development. Do you think that you're going to see, a next step taken up from the bye week? Do you think the 5-star quarterbacks learn from it?
Absolutely. The bye week, like we've already said, is so instrumental in just, honestly, like mentality too. Taking a break, sitting down, watching the films, talking about it, getting a whole week to just sit, think, look, watch, relax, and then going out, especially looking at that Nebraska game. That Nebraska win was crucial also in confidence. In confidence with the offensive line, especially with that drive at the end of the game. The offensive line has so much confidence going into this game. In turn, with Bryce Underwood's confidence, it's going to look very good. And, I think they're going out of the bye week a little bit easy playing Wisconsin, but then that competition gets a lot more tough. Michigan has to go on the road to USC, and then they're hosting Washington at home. 2 dangerous teams. So that shows that this competition is going to get tough. You have kind of a
valley, ups and flows,
hills, ups and flows of competition. But that should not trick you to think that you just always have it in the bag, of course.
100%. I mean, this is going to be a preview, this is a tough spot where Michigan, not today, but it is like a take care of business kind of day. Don't play with your food. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what I want to see out of the Wolverines specifically today. It is Bryce Underwood. You know what I want to see out of him more importantly than anything? A clean football game. I don't want to see him throw into a double coverage and underthrow a ball like we kind of did see against Central when he threw off his back foot, just bombing it on the heat check, which I still just crack up every time I remember that throw. But I want to see Bryce Underwood play a clean football game. You're at home. You should have no problem with crowd noise, anything like that, at all. I want to see him on the same page with his wide receivers. I don't want to see false starts. I don't want to see delay of games. I want to see an extremely clean football game after the bye week before you have to go to USC, on October 11th and a night game in USC. That's going to be another big road test for the quarterback, the freshman, Bryce Underwood. So I want to see him take care of business, play some clean football, hand the ball off, establish the run, and then really hit his deep shots when they open up on some play action.
I do think that it's really all about just cleaning things up at this point because you've played enough games, you've made enough mistakes. You are a freshman quarterback, but you are so good. You were the #1 recruit for a reason. So now it's time to really just perfect those mistakes and not make those silly mistakes and kind of limit those inconsistencies as a quarterback. And in turn, I think that the performance of Bryce Underwood specifically would, because I'm thinking about Sharon Moore, and he's such an interesting topic because he's just been, in my opinion, questionable as a coach. Do you think that this game specifically would be crucial for him in turn of Michigan's performance if they look really clean, if they're making all the plays, if Bryce Underwood's making all of the throws, or are you looking more long-term for Sharon Moore?
I think if he comes out today and, if Bryce Underwood rushes for 50 yards and a touchdown, throws for 200 and a couple scores, I think you're legitimately looking at Sharon Moore as if he's doing his job right. Everything with Sharon Moore is going to come down to how does he utilize Bryce Underwood? And if Bryce Underwood looks great, Sharon Moore is going to do great and win a ton of games. But if Bryce Underwood is struggling and it looks like a play call issue, it looks like an issue of, Sharon Moore still has the training wheels on him as we saw in Oklahoma. If those are the issues, Sharon Moore will not be here to coach Bryce Underwood. That's just a fact. So I believe Bryce Underwood and Sharon Moore going in at home against Wisconsin today, that is the biggest question mark. I think Michigan wins this game, and I think they will win by a landslide. And we'll get to a couple picks in a bit. But I believe this is the biggest question mark today. It's the quarterback and the head coach. And in week 5 of a season, it's kind of crazy to say that. But with the suspension and not being able to see it, Pogge stepped in and filled in really, really well. Phenomenally. And I believe the pressure is now on Sharon Moore because Pogge did look so good and this offense did look so great. So if he doesn't look good, the Sharks are going to start, circling.
I completely agree. And I do think that most of the pressure in this game is on Sharon Moore with his weeks of absence, of course. So I'm very intrigued to see how that goes. And then we look on the other side of things. Luke Fickles, even that name, God.
You don't love Luke Fickle? It sounds like a weird name.
Yeah, right? How long do we think that he's going to last?
I don't know if he makes it to the end of the year. I think maybe after the one second, I had their schedule pulled up. Obviously, they're going to lose against Oregon and OSU. I think it was that 2 weeks after that. I'm pulling up the schedule right now. Give me 1 second. I believe after I think they also had Indiana. So when Wisconsin gets blown out at Indiana on November 15th by maybe 70 points because Cignetti loves to do that. He loves to toss up 70, Indiana's head coach, which crazy that Indiana football is now a powerhouse. I think after November 15th, Luke Fickell will get fired. After losing to, I don't know if they'll beat Iowa, I doubt it, but after losing to OSU, Oregon, Washington, and then at Indiana, he's out of here.
And that even makes it more tough for the team in general because the possibility of him not making it to the end of the season is so big, such a big possibility.
For sure.
And then that just screws up the team even more. They've had their injuries with the quarterbacks, the turnover with coaches and stuff like that. And then it's like, how do you bring in a new coach mid-season, end of season, and try and, I mean, that new coach wouldn't even, in my opinion, try and revamp.
Yeah, they would
Wisconsin,
hire within. They would have to.
But, I mean, it's sad. And then it's kind of similar to the question of when you look at the Bengals versus the Lions, it's like, oh, do you wish Joe Burrow was there? And it's like, yes, I want to see some competition.
Yeah.
Similarly with this game, it's like, we want to see some competition. I wish that Wisconsin's number 1 quarterback wasn't injured and was holding it down for them. But even that wouldn't change much for the outcome of the game. But it really is just unfortunate.
Yeah, it truly is. And I think, Wisconsin's best shot to get their guy in here is after Indiana firing Fickell. Honestly, it could be after losing, like I stated earlier, 150-0 against OSU and Oregon combined. So I would watch out maybe even after October 25th, knocking out those two. But
I think that the best bet for Wisconsin is crossing your fingers, closing your eyes, praying to whoever you believe in.
Yeah.
And putting ice in your toilet.
Yeah.
Like doing all the good juju that
Yeah.
you can do to just hope for a miracle at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And we're about 10 minutes away from kickoff. So I do want to tell you guys your best way to make money today. I cannot believe that this spread is still this low.
Crazy, right?
It is a 17.5-point spread for the Michigan-Wisconsin game. I thought it was a 12-10 kick. I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, it is. All right, sounds good. This spread is 17.5, and I am telling you right now, the Michigan Wolverines are going to win this game 38-10. That is my prediction, and I'm honestly just giving them a late touchdown here, Haley. I do not see any world that Wisconsin can keep this game close. I think you see Bryce Underwood and Sharon Moore and that pressure that we talked about. I think he feels it too a little bit. I think he's read some of the press clippings about how pogey and this offense looked with Sharon Moore out of there. And I believe Sharon Moore, with that being said, will let Bryce Underwood loose because he knows that he has no option but to let
The
Bryce
pogey?
Underwood, Sharon Moore, I apologize. I believe Sharon Moore will let Bryce Underwood just absolutely go off because he has to, and he knows that for his job. And they're going to see this today against Wisconsin, and you're going to see this offense gain some momentum that they will need going into USC next week.
Yeah.
38-10 Wolverines. Best bet, Michigan minus 17.5. Lock it in. Last time we were here, we hit like a plus 890 parlay. Talk about Justice Haynes touchdown, Bryce Underwood touchdown, over on both of their rushing yards. So we're 1-0 on giving out picks for the Michigan pregame. Haley, how do you feel about the 17.5-point spread? Michigan to cover and win by 18 points.
I think Michigan might even get upwards to 40s, possibly.
Oh.
I mean, who knows? Like I said, you have that amazing duo in Justice Haynes and Bryce Underwood. And speaking of the running backs, how do you want the running back carries split between Haynes and Marshall?
Yeah, so it's similar, honestly, like I talked about, hinted at it at the beginning of the show. We talk about Justice Haynes and we talk about Jordan Marshall, and I kind of see him in a similar light to Jahmyr Gibbs and the dynamic runner that he is. And like Justice Haynes, I kind of comp those two just a little bit. I mean, Haynes isn't as fast as Gibbs, but he is still extremely dynamic. And then I think about, a hardcore bruiser in Jordan Marshall, kind of like I see David Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that they're able to divvy it up, I would probably say like a 70-30, which honestly might even be a little too low of a number, but I want to see Justice Haynes obviously get the majority of these carries. I think he's the best running back in football right now, and I think Justice Haynes could go on a magical special Blake Corum type run, honestly, if they allow him to give him the carries. So final number, 75-25. I'm going Justice Haynes, 75% of the carries, day in and day out in terms of running back split. Jordan Marshall had a great game against Nebraska. Don't get me wrong, but I just think Justice Haynes is so special. It's hard to take the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, but between the two, I do think that split is a pretty valid percentage between the two. Like you said, they both played very well in that Nebraska game. Jordan Marshall had 80 yards on the ground, while Justice Haynes had 149 yards on the ground. So it's just amazing to see. And in this game especially, this can be their game to truly thrive and run the ball because this is their easiest time to do so.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this game. I mean, we see today I'm starting Marshall today, though. I don't know if you're in a fantasy college football league, Mark, but I would say check the number. Call it. That's a tough one. I don't know if I've heard I'm starting Marshall. That's crazy. But I will say Jordan Marshall, he has really packed a punch against Nebraska. I've liked what I've seen, but the same way Corum had to wait his turn, and the same way you've seen running backs, get like the 25% of the snaps and then take over their junior year or so. I believe Justice Haynes, this is going to be his last year in college football. The way that he's playing, he is setting up to be a first or second round running back because he's been that dynamic. And I believe, with that being said, Marshall will still be used, but it's going to be next year in terms of being that lead dog in the backfield. And he seems like just a great guy. Every interview that I see with Marshall as well, he says all of the right things. I don't think he's like A.J. Brown in Philly, get me the damn ball more when your team's 4-0.
Right.
Not that kind of guy at all. He doesn't seem like it. So I believe Jordan Marshall is okay with getting this percentage of snaps, and I believe it keeps him even just more hungry. Every time he does get the rock, you're going to see him run his heart out.
And it keeps you more humble in general. Just like you were comparing it, like it's important to know that there's always room to grow and be humble in your success, of course. And then going back to the receivers, we did touch a little bit on the receivers in general. I was saying that I'm very intrigued to look at Andrew Marsh's performance, but then we look at Samaj Morgan because he has been in the conversation, of course, of being a gadget guy, and he is definitely one of the receivers that I want to see step up, just like all of the other ones, because like I've already said, I do not think that Bryce Underwood has receivers that he can trust just yet, which is something that that team does need to work on. Samaj Morgan has been in the offense for years, and he's been getting the opportunities that he's been getting, but my biggest question is, do you think that he's already hit his ceiling, or is his ceiling higher than what it is?
So I don't want to say that he's hit his ceiling yet, just because I still believe there's a place where Samaj Morgan can find space in zones that defenses try to throw at this team because of his speed, because he's able to, hopefully be on the same page as Bryce Underwood. And if they can do that and he can find some holes in a zone, soft zone, kind of just completely fake out the defense, he can still be used in spots 100%. I mean, I believe he's still the number 2 right now. We talk about all the potential about Andrew Marsh and what he can bring to this team, but, it's a lot of coach speak until we actually see him get the snaps on the field with the ones. I think they should give Andrew Marsh those snaps. But for now, they're continuing to give Samaj Morgan those snaps. And I believe Samaj Morgan still does have a lot to prove, but I don't think he's hit his ceiling just yet, because I think him and Bryce can continue to grow. And with all of these receivers dropping passes, I still believe if Samaj can catch every single ball that's thrown to him by Bryce Underwood, he can still build a great rapport. Bryce doesn't know who he trusts yet. So if Samaj is catching everything that's thrown to him, I believe he still could, find a different level within this Michigan offense. And it's yet to be seen, but do you have confidence at all that he can continue, or do you believe he's kind of hit that peak?
Maybe he hasn't fully hit the peak, but I do see him as simply just a gadget guy. Looking at all of the previous games, I just don't think that there's been any significant flashes to where he's proven himself that he has more than what he's been giving.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I thought this was the case because I remember looking at it back in the day, but maybe one of the reasons why he has so much rope with this team, Haley, is because he was recruited by Sharon Moore and Ron Bellamy back in 2023. So, yeah, I think that is definitely a thing there. Well, maybe, he's getting a little bit more slack. Sharon and Ron used to be in the West Bloomfield program as well, where Samaj Morgan came from. So I'm excited to see how it breaks down. But once again, spread of the day, Michigan, 17.5. I'm taking that spread no matter what. I think this is going to be an absolute blowout. Haley, this was a blast, as always. Second time
it's always so fun working with you.
Second time with you. I mean, big Michigan win today?
Big Michigan
win 40
today.
Maybe?
40.
All right, I love it.
I'm being optimistic.
Very optimistic. Great job as always, Haley. Make sure you guys smash that like button on your way out. And this was the Michigan pregame show with Nicholas Koloff and Haley Scott. Woo! Go Blue.